Hey guys, this is an update video on the 330i. You can see I've done some weight reduction on the front, which actually has the most beneficial effect on handling. Improves braking stability and turn-in response. I've removed about 300 pounds from the front of the car, so it should drive really good now. And that should equate to about 3/10 in the quarter mile as well. Those of you that follow me on Instagram already know this, but I blew the engine that was in the car, which was not the engine's fault. It was my mistake. I bought used S65 injectors, which you need to run E85, and you should never buy used injectors. I did not even flow test them before installing. And what happened is the injector I installed on cylinder 3, it was damaged, whether in shipping, uninstall, install, who knows. But it stuck open at wide open throttle. So my bank 1 was running super rich. It was pegged out max on the AFR gauge. And I actually thought my O2 sensor went bad. So I drove it home. Big mistake because the injector was just wide open spraying fuel, which actually started to hydrolock that cylinder 3. And it started damaging the cylinder wall, the cylinder rings, and I actually bent that rod a little bit, but it still ran halfway decent. The only real solutions to a damaged cylinder is replacing the engine or doing a rebuild, and I didn't feel like doing either at the time, so I've just been driving this engine, racing it, redlining it 7,600 RPM for about 15,000 miles now. Only issues I had was I was down like 20 horsepower, it felt like, and I was getting a misfire on cylinder 3, but I was actually recommended this stuff by one of my friends, and that actually got rid of the misfire. I just put a bunch in the engine. I think I did a bottle and a half. So I've still been daily driving it. I had it on the track with the bent rod, with the damaged cylinder rings, and it still ran and drove, but I knew it would blow up eventually. And so 15,000 miles later, it finally grenaded cylinder 3. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, boom. And there's a nice window right through the entire block, through the oil pan, all the way around. So I don't know the exact mechanics behind it, but the piston is missing on cylinder 3, so it probably grenaded and little bits and pieces flew out through these holes. And I was actually merging on the highway when this happened, and I went full throttle up to 7,000 RPM, and that piston let go, and the half of the rod was still spinning at 7,000 RPM. As you can see, that rod wanted to leave and get some milk. It's no big deal because I knew it was going to blow up eventually after that injector damaged the cylinder. And it actually lasted a lot longer than I thought it would. It literally had a bent rod and was still running and driving. My issue was from buying damaged used injectors, but after looking into it, the E90 M3 owners have also had some issues with injectors, which is what I'm using. So from now on, I'm recommending to use the Porsche injectors that the turbo N52 guys use. I'll put a link in the description for those, but they are meant to be much more reliable in general, and you don't want an injector failing, even though it shouldn't happen if you buy brand new injectors. But if you're running E85 or boost and you need more fuel, definitely go with the Porsche injectors instead of the S65. I have the new engine, an N54 with a turbo delete, with a lightweight magnesium block, with a Valvetronic retrofit. I've got this genuine N52 sticker to make it look legit. This engine up here, I'm gonna show you guys how to inspect your rod bearings. It's really easy. Just get a Sawzall or angle grinder and cut a nice hole right here. And then you can get a perfect view of your rod bearings. Yeah, that looks good to me. You can also inspect your pistons while you're there. And yeah, it looks like we're missing a piston. Here's those AliExpress headers I tell everyone about. Got them ceramic coated when I first bought them, and they're still fine. I haven't had any issues with them as long as you use the OEM gaskets and not the crap that they send with them. You won't have any issues. Got a chance to check out these motor mounts that I filled with 3M window weld. I think Vehicular DIY is the one who made a video on this, but I don't know if it's from oil contamination from the engine blowing, but it's starting to push out right here. It should still work as intended since it's still blocking the air gap between the mount and the shell, but just something to be aware of. Bummer there because it takes a week to cure, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to do. While I've got the engine out, I'm gonna do a lot of the hoses that haven't been replaced and some just general maintenance things that should be done. Once I get this new motor in, the next thing on the list of things to do is gonna be velocity stacks. There's just gonna be cones right off of the intake ports. They're gonna delete the throttle body and the MAF sensor. And 22 RPD is going to make the adapter plates and the trumpets and do the tuning for it. And once that's done, it should scream. I'll probably try 7,800 RPM on those and dyno it and see where the power starts to drop off, if at all. The only issue at high RPM is with these AA type unequal length headers, is they seem to drop off around 7,300 RPM, just because the diameter on these pipes is pretty small and there's no step up in diameter. They're obviously not equal length either. So that's kind of a downfall of those, even though they're a lot better than the stock ones and they're cheap. So I still recommend them, but if you want to rev out to 7,800 RPM, you'd be better off getting custom equal length headers made to make power up there. The car is currently getting prepped for time attack. I was actually scheduled to compete in time attack 2 days after the engine blew. So I'm really glad that it blew on the street going straight and not on the track, because my brakes and tires were all covered in oil and it would have made a big mess on the track. So in summary, new motor's going in, velocity stacks, new tune, still running E85, maybe some more aggressive brake pads for the track. I'm also thinking about doing a 335i ZF trans or the LCI 528i trans, which is the ZF6, but it's the second generation, which shifts twice as fast or faster than the first generation. The only issue is making it communicate with the DME. I have read that you can run the MSV80 DME and get it to communicate and code it, but I'm not positive and I really don't want to pull the trans, do fluid, whatever, and then find out that it does not work and have to redo the job. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate the comments, sharing the videos, whatever, and fuck N54. Shout out Craig Bimmer.